Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video view series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. For this video, we'll be reviewing the seasonal monster book 10 New Year's Nemeses, designed by the Hall of Danger team, led by Lucas Anderson. This review has been sponsored by the publisher, and a review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. Also, full disclosure, Lucas is a patron of patreon.com/RogueWatson. If you are interested in a sponsored review, you can reach me via email, Twitter, or Discord, or my submission format, RogueWatson.com. And if you enjoy the content, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Happy New Year, everyone. I wish I had a... when I did the seasonal Christmas book and I had the Santa hat on, I don't have like a already had, or those glasses that say 2023, I guess it would be now. 2020 had the better glasses, but of course we don't want to talk about 2020. As far as these seasonal monster books go, if this is your first rodeo, they are themed after whatever season it is, giving us anywhere from 10 to 13 appropriate monsters that are drawn from myths and legends and just pop culture in general that you would find that would kind of make sense in this season. New Year's, interestingly, is celebrated by a lot of cultures around the world, not always at the same time, as we all look at different calendars. But the idea of time being an important theme, and of renewal, and maybe regrets, and like just I feel like a lot of those times are kind of universal with the seasonal and with the theme. So I think it's a pretty cool theme to explore. Maybe not quite as obvious as like the Christmas ones or even the Halloween ones, but I kind of like the ideas behind this theme, and I was interested to see what kind of creatures that we would end up with. I think ultimately I'm actually a little disappointed, not in the creatures that were chosen, but in how they were actually executed. So I think the stat blocks were actually some of the more disappointing stat blocks, and maybe that's a product of me having reviewed so many of these seasonal monster books that I've got really excited about all the really original, creative ways that the different themes and creatures were explored in those stat blocks. So when it came time to actually look at them, some of them were a little more mundane than I would have liked. For example, this Beast of the Zodiac, clearly inspired by the Chinese New Year, which is, I think, at least here in the U.S., is becoming a much more popular thing to maybe not necessarily celebrate, but at least be much more culturally aware of. And part of that, I know, is a lot of ongoing video games are a big thing. Whether it's mobile games or things like Fortnite or Overwatch or something. And a lot of them they celebrate all these different seasonal events. So every single holiday, and I think maybe because Chinese New Year falls on a time that's typically doesn't have a lot of other holidays going on. It's usually like late January, early February. Maybe that's been more popular, but in any case, it's all about the animals and what year of the animal were you born in. My oldest was a dragon, by the way, which is pretty cool. I would have really liked to see how a stat block translates the either the Zodiac sign, the idea of the going through the cycle of, what is it, 12 or 13 animals, and then going back and forth again and again, and maybe it's one creature that can, like, kind of a chimera that can, or a shapeshifter or something going on. And unfortunately, we don't get any of that. It was really disappointing, and maybe even some kind of variant where it's like, I know Fizban's had the animated breaths that had it all in one stat block, but it was like, hey, if it's a cold, then this happens. If it's a fire, then this happens. And instead, it's just they get to have different elemental traits, but it doesn't even give you an idea of like which one is which. It just says, hey, some of them could be by air, by land, or by sea, and maybe they have the investiture elemental abilities that they can be under the effects of. But otherwise, it's a very simplistic stat block, and I was really disappointed because you could do a lot of really cool, interesting things with the idea of the Zodiacs, and you could have either maybe a bunch of, just give me 12, whatever it is, stat blocks that are all slightly tweaked to be different, or give me one that can transform into different kinds, and maybe each one has a different ability, or something to that effect. But it's really kind of boring, especially for a CR10. It's really, honestly, a boring stat block. And that kind of leads me to another con, unfortunately, I have, which is in the previous books, at least in the last one I reviewed, which was the 12 more Christmas sleighs, they did a good job of keeping creatures in kind of that tier 1, tier 2, which I think if you're going to focus on anything, you should be those 2 tiers, and be pretty rare to provide those really extra powerful creatures because they're just not going to be used very often. Unfortunately, this one has that problem where half of the stat blocks are like above CR10, and I don't even think they need to be. Like, there's not like a whole lot of godly, like, important creatures. Like, yes, the Father Time one, which is called Father of Yesteryear here. Obviously, that could be a godlike figure, and it is. It's a CR23. You also got the New Year's baby New Year, which is called the Child of the Hereafter, which is, it's a cute idea. But again, why is this thing a CR23 like godlike being? And the ones that are really irk me the wrong way is the Gaia Hog. That's a funny idea. Obviously, we're looking at Groundhog's Day here with the Punxsutawney Phil and seeing the shadow and all the things. But why on earth is it a CR18, like, just amazing godlike figure that has all these crazy abilities? Portent's a fun idea, but it can control the weather. It's got all these crazy weather abilities and legendary actions, and it's very gaze, can like cause you to take psychic damage, almost like the old internet meme of, I think it was was it a groundhog or was it a beaver that like turned to the camera and was like, there's no reason to make that thing so crazy powerful. And I didn't get the joke there about why it's so powerful. The Gaia Hog. The confetti ball golem is a funny idea. That's obviously, when I think New Year's, one of the most popular images I think of, besides just party in general, is the ball dropping in New York City, which was popularized in the latter half of the 20th century, really. And this is a golem that just walks around and has this ball on there. And this one actually does attempt to give us some more interesting. It's not the biggest, stat block, but it has at least some interesting things going on where it counts down from 3. So literally the DM has to keep track of it through the rounds. And then when it reaches 0, it kind of explodes into this extra big attack that it can only do when it hits 0. And interestingly enough, it can be slowed down literally by the slow spell, which I thought was pretty fun. Otherwise, it still has attacks it can do. It just doesn't do its big attack until after 3 rounds, which I'm okay with. It's like a little fiddly to keep up with it, but I think that's very appropriate for the ball dropping. Also want to give a shout out to the adventure hooks on here. This is something all the Holiday Danger books add, is they add little fun adventure hooks to all their stat blocks, which I've always appreciated. I always call that out as being a huge plus. And something that I think works well with the trade-off that you're going to get far fewer monsters in these books than you would in a lot of other monster books, but they're all very thematically appropriate. They've all got really fun artwork to go with them, and they've got these really cool adventure hooks. So, for example, one of them is a confetti ball golem has stood in town for as long as anyone can remember, just motionless, turned off, and all of a sudden like a number 6 appears on there, and then all of a sudden a number 5 an hour later, and the villagers are panicking and trying to get you to help out and see what's going on. Another one is a drunken celebrant has become trapped inside the ball of a confetti ball golem, and you must trick the golem into believing that it is the new year in order to get to open up and release the poor soul trapped inside. Or it could be that a town has just purchased 2 of these confetti ball golems for a celebration, and then later you find like a man who's, a dazed man covered in confetti approaches you and begs you to stop the con man before anyone else gets hurt. Those are all really fun ideas and showcases how to use this creature in different ways. And I like the fact that this creature is actually one that the players would probably be battling, which unfortunately, and I've had this complaint with other Holiday Danger books, where a lot of the fancy creatures are more like entities that they would meet instead of like these big bad monsters that they would be actually fighting at the end of like a dungeon lair or a part of a side quest or something, like the Grianne Lady of the Long Night. I wasn't actually sure where this comes from, and frankly I think the Goddess of Winter angle is maybe a little overplayed. The whole Queen of Air and Darkness or something from the Fey world, and then you've got, of course, the Frost Maiden, which I'm knee deep in running around with the Frost Maiden campaign right now. So I was like really ho hum about having yet another it's a powerful Fey or god-like lady who's in charge of winter, basically. Favorite ones for me, probably the Hogmanant, how you pronounce it, and the Resolution Devil. Both of them have fun ideas, although Hogmanant has much more interesting stat block, where this is really just the personification of revelry and partying, which I think is the biggest theme for New Year's for me that I can remember. That's how the culture now has become, is just everybody gets like crazy drunk and celebrates and everything. The end of the holiday season. And the Hogmanant, and let's see, it's trying to find Like Brawl, no. There we go. Flow like wine. At the start of each of the Hawkman's turns, every potable liquid within 60 feet is magically turned extremely alcoholic for 1 hour. And then you eventually you can be poisoned from that. He can kind of cast command or what is it, the irresistible dance. He can speak with anybody who's drunk. It's just a really lot of fun ideas that I could see why this would be a really interesting creature that's not necessarily there for the violence, but helps incite violence. Like, so as part of like a tavern brawl or something. And it's like a little Fey creature that starts off as like a bunch of kindling or a log on the fire or something. And then when it's ignited, that's what like starts up the whole party and everything. So I thought that was a really fun idea, and that seemed kind of inventive, which is to, I don't know if this is drawn from something literally, but to take like the personification of partying into this little like devil creature is just kind of mischievous. And the Resolution Devil, again, fabulous artwork for this character, is the personification of like the hangover, like waking up with like huge regrets and things. In this case, it's like you've signed contracts you can't fulfill, and the Resolution Devil is there to make you feel bad about it and try to get you to sell your soul to make the bad things go away. The stat blocks much less interesting than the Hogmanat, but I thought it was a really funny idea. The Rosha is apparently based on Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, which is not as quite popular as in pop culture, at least, but obviously still very popular in the religious sense of it. I didn't know anything about this one other than it involves feasting, and apparently that feast can include a fish head. So apparently that has translated to this rather swole individual with a fish head and a hoe. And then I don't know why the stat block again is a CR13 of just this big beefy figure that's wielding I guess I call it a rake here. And yeah, I don't know why it's such a powerful creature. I don't know why they're also powerful creatures. Like, let us, like, it's okay to make some smaller, weaker creatures for us to actually battle and to come in contact with. Even, you know, even if you're going to use them in an NPC capacity. But to me, that's way less useful if you're giving me inventive, creative stat blocks. You know, if it's just purely a quest-giving NPC, then it's almost something I don't need a stat block for. So that's why I would like these books to kind of lean towards the fact of, like, these are creatures you're actually going to see in combat, hence why we have a stat block for them. And yet I can't see myself using a lot of these creatures because they're just too powerful and too out there. You know, Father Time, it's fun to have that creature, but I'm never gonna, like, I don't know how they would end up battling Father Time to see the stat block in play, but at least Father Time has really cool abilities to back up that stat block. Obviously, they all involve time, so you can cast Time Stop, you can, you know, open a time bubble, and I believe the Baby New Year or Child of Hereafter, I don't know why the names were used like that, I guess to make it sound more fantasy-ish, can like blast you through, what is that? There's a D&D one called like Trip Through Hell or something where you blast them through hell and they take damage. In this case, they just go through like time into tomorrow. They get blasted in different time eras and take a bunch of force damage based on that. And then there's the Bonfire Dragon, which is not even worth mentioning. It's really boring, unfortunately. It's, I guess, also maybe Chinese New Year, I'm not sure. A dragon that gets reborn into a bonfire, and it's just a fire dragon. The only interesting thing about this entire stat block, besides I guess we get two variants, is it can animate little pieces of coal that can fly around and kind of tap you for the fire damage. So, okay, there's that, I guess. But ultimately, it's not my favorite of the Hall of Danger books. In fact, I would probably put it at the halfway point at best. And it may be that the glut of having these is catching up to me, whereas I really enjoyed the other seasonal book because I just thought there was a lot of great ideas there. This time I thought most of the ideas were fine, but I just wasn't very excited by their actual stat blocks. None of them, very few of them got me excited to want to, like, you know, showcase this particular creature's abilities or ideas, you know, versus a lot of the other holiday books. So I thought it was a little bit disappointing in that regard. My pros and cons, you can probably guess them already. Pro, 10 original creatures drawn from myths, legends, and modern revelry. I do think the theme is pretty solid, and the ideas that they had were pretty good. You know, I'm looking at this thinking, I don't think they're missing anything necessarily that I could think of, other than like some kind of fireworks elemental, but I'm trying to think back and if we got something like that for the summer one, because that's the problem, is fireworks are also very popular for like the 4th of July celebrated here in the US. So I couldn't, I read through this thing and I was like, oh, they're missing, you know, X creature. I didn't get that feeling. So that's why I put that as a good pro. Pro, delightful original artwork for each monster. I still love the way these books are designed with the fun little colorful cartoon art. And Pro, multiple adventure hooks for each entry. I absolutely love all the little adventure hook stories. Some of them better than others, but it's really cool that we get them. Cons, the stat blocks just aren't as inventive as other Hall of Danger releases. I didn't get a lot of the fun creativity or new interesting abilities. I got a lot of things that I've kind of already seen before, and that may, and I'm perfectly admitting that may be a fact. This is like the 6th one that I've reviewed, so it may just be that it's maybe harder to please me at this point, harder to show me something I haven't seen before because we've already done all those, and that's, you know, a problem with a lot of sequels, frankly, that you're going to run into as you keep having to compete against yourself and one-upping yourself. And I think this one, it doesn't quite able to do that when it comes to the stat blocks. And then my other con is I was annoyed that the designers decided to make half of them just really powerful for no real reason. Maybe there's too much emphasis on godlike and powerful creatures. The Rosha and the Gaihog especially, I don't know why they were so high level. Dragons, I guess they can be, but even still, like, I don't know, dragons are just kind of boring because we've got a million dragons, and how are you going to do the dragon stat block differently, right? Like, you're really starting on the bad foot when you're doing a dragon of anything. So I wasn't a fan of the big emphasis on these really high level creatures necessarily either. All right, final verdict. A new year brings a new Hall of Danger release with solid theming around time and revelry, though the stat blocks aren't quite as memorable as other holiday monster books. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Thank you.